me go ahead and introduce Mary. So again, Angela Forrest very kindly set this up for us, and we're glad to have Mary here. So Mary McLaughlin was born and educated in Jamaica. She has had a varied career as a geologist, a teacher, and an artist. And after closing her business, McLaughlin Glazeware, Mary wanted to do something to help the environment. So in 2008, Trees That Feed Foundation was born with the mission of planting fruit trees to feed people, create jobs, and benefit the environment. Trees That Feed Foundation has now planted nearly 400,000 food-bearing trees in 23 developing countries in the Caribbean, Central America, and Africa. Their flagship tree is breadfruit. Trees That Feed also runs supporting programs including school feeding, entrepreneurship, and education. And when Mary isn't volunteering her time with Trees That Feed, she's busy with her husband, children, and grandchildren, all who live nearby in Chicagoland. So with that, I will turn it over to Mary and to Natasha, who'll be sharing the screen.
Great. Well, welcome. I'm so appreciative to be able to speak to you. Our foundation is called Trees That Feed, and that's exactly what it is. We want to promote the planting of more trees and trees that can feed people. We dovetail with other organizations who plant native trees and timber trees, but our focus is food from trees, and we focus on agroforests or food forests, mainly because we think it's more holistic for the soil. And smallholder farmers, who we direct most of our trees to, if they have a mixed food forest system, it's almost like an insurance policy. If one crop fails, there's another fruit crop that comes along shortly. So we plant trees like breadfruit, avocados, mangoes, guavas, and a myriad of other food-producing trees. So our focus is on the first picture, food-bearing trees. But we also look at the food-bearing trees and we look at the nutrition of those. And we create agro businesses. If you can see that woman, she's holding a basket of biscuits. That's in Haiti. Those are nutritional biscuits made with products from agroforests that are solar dried and then baked in an oven. In Haiti, those are called comparettes. Think of a biscotti made with breadfruit flour, and you create breadfruit flour from dehydrating breadfruit. We also have a large number of educational programs. We educate children on the value of trees. We teach them to love trees and all the great benefits of trees, which we all know about, not just shade, habitat for wildlife, economic benefit, holding the soil in storms with erosion, and most important to me is capturing carbon. We never sell carbon, but we know the value of trees from carbon. And trees, one breadfruit tree will capture 1.3 tons of carbon, which is incredibly environmentally beneficial to our planet. We also educate farmers, and because farmers need to know the skills as well. So these are the countries where we have a footprint in. Some of the footprints are light, some of the footprints are very deep. We are we have a deep presence in Haiti and Jamaica. I'm from Jamaica, so we work very closely with the forestry department in Jamaica. We buy the trees from nurseries, we supply them to the forestry department, and then they distribute them to smallholder farmers and also in integrated food forest, mixed forests. In West Africa, we have a large footprint in Ghana, and we are doing just unbelievable work in Uganda. It's Uganda is just our sweet spot at the moment. We're just having such great success. Next slide. Okay, breadfruit. Where did breadfruit come from? Look at those wonderful big leaves. Imagine all that photosynthesis that's going on in those leaves. And those round circles you see, that's the fruit. Think of a melon. It's the size of a melon, but it's filled with carbohydrate. It's like a potato on a tree, but the potato, that's the size of a melon. And if you roast it, that's what we do in Jamaica. We fire roast it. And when you slice it open, it tastes like a freshly baked egg bagel. That's what I think. It's delicious, it's light, and it's nutritionally dense. But breadfruit originally has come from New Guinea. That's where it originated. And over time, the canoe people transported breadfruit trees throughout the Pacific. So we think of breadfruit in Tahiti and Hawaii, where it's called ulu. In Jamaica, we call it breadfruit because it's a fruit, but it's bread. And breadfruit was introduced to the Caribbean in the end of the 1700s. It was actually brought there to feed the enslaved people. And the enslaved people resented it. They didn't even eat it for 50 years. Once they discovered it, then it became part of their diet. But breadfruit trees don't propagate themselves easily. So when you plant a breadfruit tree, from that mother tree in its lifetime, you may get two or three. But trees that feed, when we started propagating large quantities, encouraging nurseries to be set up in all these countries, and we would buy the trees and then donate them to farmers. So what can you do with breadfruit? Breadfruit's gluten-free. So you can roast it. You can see them being roasted in the fire there. But when breadfruit is producing, it's so prolific that you can't eat all the fruit on the tree. Each tree will give you 200 fruit. Imagine 200 melons that's produced in maybe a 6 week or a 2 month period. It's just prolific, and a lot of it goes to waste. So trees that feed develop the technique of dehydrating breadfruit using solar dehydrators that my husband and worked with Northwestern University engineers to develop. A very successful solar dehydrator. And in fact, it's so successful that in Haiti, the United Nations, on their account, they're building 50 of these in southern Haiti. Because the breadfruit, once it's shredded, you have to shred it so you have a larger surface area, dried in the solar dehydrators. And at that point, then you can grind it into flour. So you go from a fruit that has the shelf life of, let's think of a banana, the shelf life of a banana. Once you dehydrate it, you have a shelf life of years. And what can you do with that breadfruit? Well, you can make it into these comparettes, or I think of it as nutritional biscuits. That's the best thing. In Haiti, the World Food Program is now buying large portions of breadfruit flour. And what they're doing is they're turning it into dumplings and they're feeding kids with it in Haiti. That's part of the World Food Program in Haiti that was established last year. So entrepreneurs make breadfruit flour, sell it locally, and some of the more advanced entrepreneurs, especially in Puerto Rico and Jamaica, they're exporting their breadfruit flour to a larger market, the United States. The Puerto Ricans have a foothold in uh, stores like Thrive and Whole Foods and more upscale supermarkets, but also it's sold locally. The Virgin Islands making vodka with it. And in Barbados, there's a very successful company, and they use the flour to make breadfruit chips, and they're delicious. And they now have a market in the United States. So those are all the many things you can do with breadfruit flour. It's gluten-free, so you can't replace wheat flour with it. You have to work with it as you work with any other gluten-free flour. Now, look at this slide, take it in. This covers all the nutritional benefits of breadfruit. Vitamin C, it's rich in potassium, rich in dietary fiber, very rich in fiber, rich in magnesium, and rich in complex um, amino acids that are just absolutely essential. So we've done many nutritional studies on breadfruit, and the nutrition varies just like how you look at a coconut. You think of a fresh coconut with that um, wonderful drink, but then you can get to coconut flakes where you have that thick coconut when it ripens. So the nutrition varies in breadfruit in a similar way as the nutritional components vary in a coconut. When you drink a freshly picked young coconut, you get no fat. But if it stays on the tree, you get a higher fat content. So the nutrition varies. But we know when we started, we wanted to plant lots and lots of trees. But we knew those trees should be turned into have an economic benefit on the people that were planting them. If not, you'd have waste. So trees that feed works with processes who want to dehydrate their flour, their breadfruit, grind it, and turn it into flour. We know we need to have that economic model. And we've helped many people just emerging as entrepreneurs with equipment. Sometimes it's a little bit of equipment, sometimes it's more where they can then start a business with this, whether they're selling breadfruit flour or they're selling breadfruit waffles. There's this woman in St. Lucia, and she started a business. She was making breadfruit flour, but then she realized she could make breadfruit waffles. Natasha, a part of our team, she was able to send her a waffle maker, and she now makes breadfruit waffles from her breadfruit flour. She packages them, freezes them, and sells them to the supermarket. I got a WhatsApp from her today because she had new orders. She says it's not even breadfruit season, and I'm getting new orders for my breadfruit waffles. So by making the breadfruit and storing the flour, making the breadfruit flour and storing it, then she has her supply all year. Now, this slide talks about tracking trees. We can't just plant trees and turn a blind eye and hope that they live, because if not, they won't. People won't take care of them. So we work with a company called Green Stand, and I urge you all, write this down, write down map.treetracker.org. It is a wonderful app. They let us use their app at no cost. And if a farmer or a homeowner plants a tree and they have that app on their phone and it costs nothing and it doesn't even cost data, you take a picture of the tree and it goes, once it's uploaded, it goes to the cloud and we can see those trees. We can see where they're planted, if they were planted properly. And in some cases, we have farmers, especially in Haiti, they're going back where their trees are 10 years old and they're taking pictures of their trees. And this is incredible when we see how big the trees are and how prolific they are with fruit. It's just incredibly rewarding. And we'll send you, if anybody's interested, we'll send you those links. It's amazing. On the left, we talk about education because we have to educate people on how to preserve their breadfruit. So that's the solar dehydrator. And if you see those wings at the bottom, that's just collecting heat from the sun. And it's collecting heat in the same way if you sit in your hot car with the windows closed, that car is going to get hot. That's the same method used with those collectors of heat. The sun's rays hit those, it gets hot. It's all made with local material. And then that area that sticks up, like that thumb sticking up, that's where you put your breadfruit where it is dehydrated. And we have exhaust solar fans at the top where the moisture comes out. And if it's loaded properly and not overloaded, within a day you go from, I think, 40 fresh breadfruit to dehydrated breadfruit that can then be stored for later use. We also have a lovely little educational activity book, and we tend to print them locally. We don't like to ship them because shipping is so wasteful. We would rather give business to local people. And we adapt it. We adapt it for Africa. We adapt it for different languages. And in Indonesia, the children in the book look different than if the children in Uganda. So we do it digitally and then we send it to a printer and they print it. It's a lovely little book. It's called Plant a Tree and Good Things Happen. And that's exactly what we want Trees That Feed to represent. You plant a tree and good things are going to happen from that tree. So this is Haiti. This is where we work in Haiti. Do you see that where that thumb where it sticks out to the west of Haiti? We have a lot of concentration of trees there. And that's the tree tracker map. When you zoom in, you get to see in each tree. But the picture on the left, that shows the person who's planting the tree. And on the On the right side, you see that little girl with those nutritional biscuits made from breadfruit flour. And the picture at the bottom right, that's was such an exciting picture for me because the logo on his shirt says World Food Program. And the World Food Program last year bought in excess of 15 tons of breadfruit flour. Now, a ton is a lot, so think of 15 tons of breadfruit flour from one breadfruit processor. And the breadfruit's dry in the sun, so it's so carbon neutral. And though the breadfruit flour is then sent to the school feeding programs in Haiti, they make a dumpling with it and they mix it with a bean stew. It's vegan. Um it's a all most of the children in schools in that part of Haiti that you can see to the left, they're eating a meal with bean stew and breadfruit dumplings. The Bahamas. Bahamas had a terrible hurricane um, in 2019. We visited Abaco. The trees were just, it was as if somebody had just clear cut everything in Abaco. So we waited for them to just take a breath. You know, you can't plant trees right away. People have to rebuild their house. They need shelter. They need to get their life back together. And then we shipped in trees. I think we shipped in, I can't recall, we did two shipments, maybe 500 trees. The photograph in the center, that's when the trees arrived. Those are all little baby breadfruit trees. And we visited Abaco last December, and that's what one of the trees looks like. So that's from I think we probably got the trees in 2020, and that's what it looks like 5 years later, producing fruit. And now we're able to send those farmers that have the trees. Last week, Natasha was able to send down to Abacos in the Bahamas equipment, a simple food processor, some portable solar dehydrators, and and then we designed bags. So we did bags with nice labels so she could just put the flour right in the bags, seal them, and take them to the local shops to sell. So the people who get the equipment, who have the trees, now have an additional income source. Uganda. Uganda is our a sweet spot at the moment. Uganda wanted trees that had one or two breadfruit trees there, but nothing of significance. And I was approached by a local Ugandan. He had just retired. He's an engineer, and he said, "Help me." So yes, we agreed to help. So I looked at Uganda, and I thought, not everywhere in Uganda can grow breadfruit. So the area in green is what I call the green zone. That's where you have the right rainfall, the right soil, and the right elevation. And we agreed to send trees, and we said, let's test them in the green zone. And our partner, name is Kamia, he had friends and neighbors and churches and mosques, and they all agreed to plant one trees. Well, in less than 2 years, their breadfruit trees are bearing. Today, they're at a huge agricultural fair and they're cooking breadfruit porridge and they're giving it as samples and they're making something that they call a kabalabala, which is like a breadfruit. It, it's like a donut made from breadfruit flour and bananas. That's all. Two ingredients: bananas and breadfruit flour, and it's fried. So technically three ingredients because you have to have oil. And it's Natasha was in Uganda, and I'll let her jump in a little while to talk about them. And they were just delicious. And this is almost a national snack in Uganda. Children eat it at school. Um, Truck drivers will stop and buy a kabalabala. Well, imagine the impact and the change this can have to Uganda as we cover Uganda with breadfruit trees. Not totally covering it, but if we have breadfruit trees all over Uganda, think of the economic ripple it will have. The farmer has his tree, he sells his fruit, somebody makes the flour, and somebody makes the kabalabalas and then sells them along. And it's not just the economic benefit, but it's the environmental benefit. Instead of people you know, doing the hard work in the sun, planting cassava and yams and crops that they have to dig the soil every year, degrading the carbon within the soil. If you get your food from trees, you're farming, you're farming in the sky because you're picking your trees and your soil is so much healthier. Your soil can store more carbon, the trunks can store more carbon, and people are harvesting their crops in a more efficient, easier way. Guatemala. We have a program. We were approached by a Rotary Club who offered us a grant and said, but you have to go into Guatemala. And we thought, we don't know anybody in Guatemala. How are we going to, we'd love to get the money, but what do we do? Well, we did some work and we found a friend who we'd known before who was growing breadfruit trees. And then we found another organization and they are contour lines and they're planting trees. They hadn't been planting breadfruit trees. But we said to them, if we can buy breadfruit trees from this one group, Dwight Carter, and those are the trees that are going to be planted in July, and we can get them to contour lines, will you plant them? And they said, absolutely, yes. So the trees are almost prizes for the farmers who are having the most efficient organic farms and planting on contours where you have less runoff, less landslides holding the soil. So we're just starting in Guatemala. We've sent some equipment. We've paid for some of the trees, and that's just the first step this year. So if you'd like to know more about trees that feed, get your phone and you can take a picture of one of those QR codes, or you can just go on our website. We are very active on social media. We would like to people to go on social media and engage with us or reach out to us. And if we can get you trees or books or equipment, we'd like to do that. We can only get you trees if you have trees already growing there that we can purchase them. If you have a program, we'd invite you to apply for a grant. The next grant opportunity, I think, is in October, and get us your plan or a program you think you'd like to do. And wherever we have the funding, we would be happy to help. If you have the opportunity to buy breadfruit flour, because breadfruit flour is available in most of the islands, buy some. We have recipes on our website. And so engage. Let's think of helping each other to do good things for this planet because there's no planet B. So this is just what we want to do to help our planet be more sustainable and be more equitable for the poorest on the planet. So thank you. Natasha, why don't you jump in and talk about your trip to Uganda and what you thought of it?
Oh, sure. Well, it was just so exciting because, these people have never even heard of breadfruit. And we're coming in with this tree that has triple the impact. It has nutritious food, it's good for the environment. And not only that, but it is climate resilient. So as it gets hotter, we're still gonna be able to grow it. And they just welcomed it. Everyone wanted to try it, and they're making these amazing things. They're going with all their traditional foods, but just replacing the flour. And so it's just really neat to see how it's growing and growing, and we have so many requests for trees. It's amazing.
Great. Well, thank you. We welcome your questions.
Thank you so much, Mary and Natasha. That was super interesting, and the work you're doing is just amazing. It's really inspirational here to hear you talk about it. I know I have some questions, but I think others probably do too. Chrissy, I think, is that your hand up there? Do you
Yeah,
want to?
yeah, it is. So, A, I remember the last time you spoke, Mary. I was so blown away, and I just think what you're doing is amazing. And thank you, and thank your organization and all your people. Um, my question was, you mentioned that at one point you mentioned something about from planting it took 5 years, or is it two? Is it 2 years that you can get fruit?
Well, when you get to 5 year full-blown production, in the
Okay,
Bahamas, And in Uganda, we're seeing production in less than 2 years, which is
Wow.
amazing. But that's not full production. 3 years more production. If the trees, the more care they get, the quicker they produce. Um, I would say average 3 to 4 years to get up to full speed.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Cassie and Mary. I see John's hand is up. John? I think you're muted, John.
I apologize. I was muted. Thank you, Mary. It was a very interesting presentation. I worked in Haiti many years ago, and with a Food for Work program, we worked with farmers and trying to get them to contour farm and so on. And but this is very interesting, and I was very intrigued with your presentation about the work you're doing in Haiti. But I would be curious to know, I know of breadfruit, but I don't know much about its water requirements. What is it? You mentioned you're doing some work in Guatemala, but we get quite a bit of rain here. Haiti is more of an arid country, or at least it's been turned that way because of climate problems over the years. I wanted to know if what are the water requirements for raising, planting and bringing, breadfruit to market.
If you think of where bananas grow, that's where breadfruit grows. So that's a type of environment. It doesn't grow at high elevation. So in Guatemala, we are planting in the coastal areas, mainly the Caribbean coast. So that's where they do well.
Mhm.
In Haiti, although a lot of Haiti is arid because it's been deforested, in the drier areas, we tend to plant along riverbeds and they keep the rivers cleaner. And then gradually, as the soil changes, then we can move kind of uphill. And then we'd plant breadfruit like close to the riverbeds in Haiti. And then high up the mountains, and you can plant more drought tolerant because we do plant other trees. You can do mangoes, you can do cashews, tamarinds, things like that. So,
Mhm.
but there are parts of Haiti that are quite lush and black green. The Grand Anse, that area that kind of sticks out as that thumb to the west, that area
Right.
is very lush and green, and it
Yeah,
looks very
Jeremy.
different than the rest of Haiti.
Yeah, that's true. Out towards Jeremy, you work out there, I trust.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Jeremy, yes.
Yeah,
And
very
if you
good.
would like to be connected with contour lines in Guatemala, just put it in the chat and we can introduce you to them because I think you will find them very interesting. They're starting.
Contour lines. Okay. You
Yeah.
mentioned Rotary Club. You were introduced to them through Rotary Club here?
No, we found them. The grant was from a Rotary Club,
Oh, okay.
and we had to find appropriate people. Yeah,
I see. Okay. Terrific. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, I've got one question, and I
sure.
will also say your presentation made me hungry because I eat breadfruit all the time in St. Lucia. I love it, and in DC, there's none here, obviously. So I really miss eating it, and hopefully I'll be able to eat it when I get back. So I have a couple questions, but one is, how do they pick the fruit? Because I know that the trees are super, super tall. So are people climbing trees? Are they using one of those, sticks to get them down, or is there some other method that you recommend?
Well, we talked about education. Part of the education that we do is to keep your trees short.
Huh,
Breadfruit
interesting.
grows on new growth, and that's important. So if you prune your tree right after harvest, prune it severely, the new shoots that come up, that's where you're getting your fruit. So it makes sense to prune your trees, then you can harvest all your fruit. And if you can get a stick with a basket
Hmm.
that's less than 20 feet tall, you can harvest all your fruit. If you let your trees grow to 70 feet, you're going to lose half of your harvest.
Huh, interesting. Okay, because I know there's a lot of, I see breadfruit trees in St. Lucia, like, along the highway and stuff like that, and they're just super tall. So I guess I don't know if anyone planted them or they're just, growing where somebody threw one time or what. But
Yeah, you never know. Yeah,
yeah.
but pruning is important, and pruning is just something. If you have a large farm, it's easy to
Mhm.
have a pruning technique. If you have a wild tree by the side of the road, nobody wants to prune that, take responsibility for that. But if you
Right.
go to Hawaii and see the breadfruit farms, they're actually kept at a very manageable height.
Mm.
Okay, very interesting. All right, I see Sally's got a question. Sally?
Yeah. Mary, for places like St. Vincent and St. Lucia, where breadfruit is abundant, and oh, by the way, St. Vincent, Captain Bligh is brought the
Yes,
first, if not the breadfruits. It was the first place they
yes,
brought bread, and there's still I guess you'd call it a clone of the original breadfruit tree here in our botanical garden. But anyway,
yes.
this aside. But anyway, breadfruit's very abundant here. Most people eat it roasted. But for a situation like this, what sorts of other products? I was very intrigued by the waffle lady in St. Lucia. I mean, that sounds amazing. But what sorts of products can you suggest that would be um, maybe popular, sellable, easily producible that we could do here?
Well, you can think of products from the dried fruit, which are very different than the fresh fruit. If you have the fresh fruit, just think of replacing your rice or your potatoes with breadfruit. Shepherd's pie, that's a very Caribbean thing. Well, why not top it with mashed breadfruit on top? Um, Chips. I go to Barbados and I am amazed. Every restaurant I go to, you get a bowl of breadfruit chips
Mm.
with your drink. That's, why I have potato chips. Why not have breadfruit chips? In
Mm.
Puerto Rico, they eat something that I'd never eaten in Jamaica with breadfruit. They take breadfruit, they kind of chunk it up, they fry it, they mash it, just mash it, and then they put salt on it, and that's a great bar food or a snack or it almost replaces like a tortilla chip. You can put salsa with it or guacamole with it. It really is delicious. So the Puerto Ricans do this thing called tostones. Jamaicans are more conservative. It's either roasted, fried, or boiled. We are really focused on preserving excess fruit, turning it into flour. When you have the breadfruit flour, pancakes. Puerto Ricans are now doing pancakes that are frozen and then shipped to schools. Schools are about to start having breadfruit pancakes. The waffles are good. Um, I get bags of breadfruit flour. I use it to make banana bread, gluten-free banana bread, zucchini bread. It doesn't make real bread. So I've never tasted bread that we think of as bread that's made with breadfruit. It's just too hard to do because it's gluten-free. And I've never been able to master a tortilla. But banana bread's just delicious. And my dream one day is that an entrepreneur would take everything from a food forest that's dried and to make an energy bar. I think of a energy bar made with breadfruit flour, dried mangoes, dried papaya, dried pineapple, and cashews. All of these would come from a food forest that's nurturing our planet, trapping carbon, giving shade, habitat, cooling our planet. And you could have this energy bar. I taste so many energy bars that are just awful. And I think we have the potential here. I just would love an entrepreneur to run with that.
Thank you.
I love that idea. I see Cheryl has her hand up. Cheryl, go ahead. I don't know if she's there. I'm not sure when she joined. Cheryl, are you hearing me? I think you're muted if you're trying to speak. I'm wondering if maybe that's an accidental hand. It looks like her hand has gone down. Okay, I will ask another question if that's okay in the meantime. So I think Sally was kind of getting at this. Yeah, I guess my question is, Mary, so were you saying that in the countries where breadfruit is already quite plentiful, that you're focusing more on the entrepreneurship side of things and training people to make these products that you're talking about? Can you talk a little bit more about how you do that? And I'm also curious about where your funding comes from. Who are your main donors? And you mentioned some grants. You said one of the grants was coming from Rotary. Are there other places where you get grants from, or where does most of that support come from?
I'll talk on your first question, which I forgot.
Okay, sure.
And then Natasha can talk about the grants because she spends a lot of her time doing
Okay.
that. But what we work, think of the breadfruit world as two places. One has never had breadfruit before, and we have to plant those early trees and um, educate people on using the fresh breadfruit. And then the countries that have too much breadfruit, it goes to waste. But it's not too much, it's only too much in a concentrated period of time. That's where we try to make breadfruit flour or engage chefs and hotels to start using it when it's in season. In Barbados, there's a restaurant called the Yellow Meat. And what it is, they only serve breadfruit. So think of a bowl, you think of um, a in Europe, sometimes you get a bread bowl where they fill it with soup. That's what they do. They roast the breadfruit, slice it, hollow it out, and they fill it with something savory and delicious. And that's all this restaurant serves. And they're very successful. During the breadfruit season, that's what I would love to see. And also people using excess fruit to preserve it with the solar dehydrators, making it into flour. And at that point, you can do almost anything with that flour that you would do with a gluten-free flour. And you can mix it. If you mix 10% breadfruit flour with wheat flour, then you can make bread. Yes. Natasha, why don't you talk about the funding?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I guess funding is getting more and more difficult for all nonprofits to find. So grants, we have just maybe 3 per year, 3 or 4 per year, and then we have about 5 large donors and then probably 400 regular donors, and so it's really, the people that just are like my mom, who's just, passionate about this amazing thing that can do such good things around the world, and they're just giving what they can each month. So we're trying to reach out more locally, and more in North America, because breadfruit is just so, people just don't know about it. Um, yeah, so it's very much word of mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, can I come in now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Sure.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
At last, greetings and congratulations on this fantastic project. I run the Fig Tree Restaurant on Beckway, and we pride ourselves on cooking only local, well, you can't get away from things like rice, but all the dashings, the yams, the breadfruit, the eddos and all of that. And when it comes to breadfruit, we do a number of items with breadfruit. We put away potatoes, and that's the curried breadfruit to go into the rotis. We make breadfruit fries, breadfruit croquettes, breadfruit au gratin, breadfruit casserole. We do so many breadfruit things sometimes. Yes, yeah. So I'm happy to hear that breadfruit has taken center stage in the discussion. What I do know about breadfruit is that once you plant it in the initial stages and you water it, it will grow. And once it starts growing, there's nothing more to do with it. It
Yeah.
will just grow. And it is true that it grows on the new growth. So if you prune it, you can really get your breadfruit at the right height. Majority of people, maybe they don't know this, so the breadfruit trees are tall, and therefore they have to get someone to go up into the tree to pick the breadfruit. I remember when we used to get almost a sack of breadfruit for $2. Now, one breadfruit, especially here in Beckway, can cost all up to 12 local dollars. But on St. Vincent, you can buy one for between 4 and 5 local dollars. So I'm happy about the project. Sadly, I came to the program a little late. When you run your own business, these things happen. But I know that Sally, who invited me to this program, thank you, Sally, she has more information than I was able to get. And I would expect I'll be calling on her to update me on some of the things that have passed, because I would have liked to know what are the other trees that are given out. If there is like a coordinator on all of the islands, and if there is, who is the on-island person, because there needs to be somebody who will anchor what is happening here and give feedback and information to you so that you know how the project is going. And I'm not saying this because I want that responsibility. Sally knows I have more than Sally knows. A lot of time when you make this suggestion, people say, oh, so you can do that. No. Sally knows my hands are, are more than full right now with the number of things that I already do. Giving a little help here and there, fine, but not to embrace it totally, not to take it on, I mean. So yes, breadfruit, and as a matter of fact, we were just having a discussion because we are planning to have like a breadfruit festival. I don't even want to talk it too hard because I think sometimes walls have ears, and by the time we say we are doing something, we hear someone else is doing it. I'm like, did someone from the discussion tell someone else, or they had the same idea too? So yeah, we actually thinking about a breadfruit festival. Fortunately for me here on Beckwith, I have a tree. I'm really from St. Vincent, and I have on St. Vincent about 8 trees on different locations. So I do have breadfruit. Breadfruit is always on in the restaurant. So although it not be on the menu for the day, if someone comes in and said, do you have breadfruit? I feel like breadfruit. Yes, we have breadfruit. We can give you. So thank you very much. And I just thought that I could, put my bit to the discussion. Thanks. And I'm here to answer any question regarding breadfruit and dishes from breadfruit. Thanks and bye.
Cheryl, we would love to get your contact. You're the kind of person, this is how we work. We find somebody like you. Maybe you can lead us to a local nursery where we can get trees from. We can promote your work in your restaurant. We can let other people around the world see what you are doing so they get ideas, cross-fertilization. So please let us have your contact or reach out to us at info@treesthatfeed.org. We would love to connect because we see what other people do. In Haiti, they make a drink with the breadfruit. It's kind of like a gluten-free, lactose-free drink. They boil it, they mash it, they put some
Yeah,
vanilla, put a little
we
rum.
make it too. We call it
Yeah,
breadfruit punch.
right.
Yep, we make it. Yep. Put a little
You know,
Guinness inside there, some condensed milk, a little nutmeg, and you blend it. Oh, yes, we make it. Yes.
so we would love to cross-fertilize or cross-educate. You know what they do in Uganda or Ghana with the breadfruit, and you could hear that they could learn what you do and they could do it, and it's just
Yeah.
spreading the world. Think what you
Yeah.
do with potatoes. You can do more with breadfruit because I've never heard of a
Oh,
potato punch, but breadfruit makes this delicious drink. It's like an eggnog.
yes, it's
I
fantastic.
buy soy milk. Why buy soy milk? You know how much fertilizer and how damaging it is to the planet to make soy milk? Imagine if the world started to drink breadfruit milk, how it would
Yep.
help environmentally. So thank you, Cheryl. It's exciting. We're going to stay in touch.
We should. Thank you very much. Hi, Christine. Her hand is up.
You're muted, I think, Chrissy. Chrissy, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Yep, got it.
There you
Sorry,
go.
hitting the wrong thing. Mary, last time you spoke, you talked about how people could take the dehydrators and then like women could make snacks to sell, like outside of our schools, a lot of snacks are sold, but they're all like really crappy stuff. Um, is this like when someone gets a dehydrator, how much is it something that like one woman or one family could do it, create this, and actually have the whole process? And how much would that cost them if it was possible?
Okay, there are different dehydrators. We have a dehydrate that's made by University of Purdue, and we buy those and ship them. The shipping's very expensive. Natasha got a whole bunch of them and tried to ship them to Ghana. It's going to be prohibitive, so we had to pay to bring them back. But in Ghana, they decided to develop their own design for dehydrating. We can share that. That's not very expensive to make a simple dehydrator. And then our large dehydrator that I just showed, that's expensive. That's about $2,000 to $3,000 when somebody just buys the material and puts it together, but it lasts forever. So there are different ones. We have them on our website, and we're happy to share that. We have good ideas. We need local partners to kind of join us, to work with us, to get something that's possible in each country.
Right.
Natasha is very good at putting all our information on our website. Sometimes it's that there's so much information or it's tricky to navigate. But if you think you have a project, if you think you can make something work, reach out to us. And we'll try to work with you as best we can. Issue with you is going to be shipping. You have to do something locally. You'll have to construct something locally. And the Ghanaian model, I think, could work. And then something to think of. Every raisin that you buy is dried outside in the sun. So why not dry the shredded breadfruit in the sun? Okay, just make sure no birds poop in it or you throw that away. But that's the issue with raisins. So why
Right.
not do it with breadfruit? You don't always have to have a perfect solar dehydrator where you have the sun. You shred your breadfruit. It's like you would be shredding cheese if you're making tacos or grating carrots for carrot salad. You take your breadfruit, put it in the sun, you dehydrate it, you bring it inside and you store it safely. Then you grind it. And in the Bahamas, they use a magic bullet to grind it when they're making their product. So start
Oh, wow.
small, then build up.
Great, thank you.
Well, I would love to connect with you about St. Lucia, Mary. You said you don't
Oh,
have anything going there, but you want to get things going. Is that right?
no, we have a lot going in St.
Oh,
Lucia.
you
We have
do. You do.
our
Okay.
best models in St. Lucia.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Natasha, can you remember her name? Adriana Velasquez. We'll connect.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds great. And do you
So
have any work going in the Pacific? I didn't
we
see
leave the
anything on that.
Pacific for the Breadfruit Institute in Hawaii. They kind of run the Pacific. We
Okay.
run the we don't run. We work in the rest of the world.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, I know. I used to work, I worked in Fiji and I did some work in Kiribati as well. And in Kiribati, as you may know, food insecurity is a big problem because there's not much fresh stuff there. But I know there was a lady there who was doing breadfruit and making breadfruit flour and stuff like that. That was a couple years ago. I don't know the status of it now, but yeah, good stuff. I was wondering if maybe you guys were connected with her, but sounds like maybe it's done through Hawaii, and I'm not sure.
yeah, and a lot of the Fijian programs, how Australia helps, and it's
Mhm.
exported to Australia.
Okay. Nice. Well, thank you so much, Mary. This was super interesting, and we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and answer all the questions. So yeah, let's give Mary a round of
Yeah,
applause.
thank
And
you.
Natasha, again, thank you so much. And we have your contact information, I believe, and I think some of us put our contact information in there. So we would definitely love to keep in touch and see how maybe we can work together or help you grow even more in some of the countries that we represent.
And just spread the word. We would ask, every time there's an ask, and ask is talk about us, tell
Mhm.
people about us. It helps if we ever get a newspaper article that mentions us. We were lucky, Natasha works hard. We got BBC, we got Forbes, we got
Wow.
Wired, but we want more. We want this to become in the consciousness of so many people. We talk about breadfruit and people say, what's that? It
Hmm.
looks like a dinosaur egg. We want the world to know about us. If you have connections to connections, talk about us. See if you can get something out there.
Hmm.
Help us on social media. That helps. That's how we get most of our funding, I think, because we get funding from random people. I think of the Barack Obama model of fundraising. He got a lot of people to give him 10, 5, $15, and that's a model we want. Then we're more egalitarian. We're not beholden to somebody who has a religious agenda or a political agenda. It's just doing the right thing, trusting us to do the right thing. And that's what we do every day. So we'd ask you to help us with that. So thank you.
Okay, no problem. We can definitely do that. Well, we're going to circulate the recording from this meeting, so we can also include your website and your socials in there as well, so that people can follow you.
Oh, and
Great.
yeah.
John, did you have one more
Yeah,
question?
well, a comment. You said, Christine, you're circulating the recording. It's a very interesting program, and it just makes me wish I'd heard about it 30 or 40 years ago. But it's fabulous, and it's very timely, though, at the same time, given what's going on climate-wise, as well as food insecurity challenges. But the recording, are you going to maybe get in touch with Jessica so the region gets it?
Yes, I can do that. I know we'll circulate it in the Caribbean, of course, and also through the Environment and Climate Caucus.
Right,
But
right,
yeah, I
right,
can also
right,
touch base with
right.
Jessica. I believe I had to leave last time before this was announced, but I think Sally said some about it at the most recent America's
Yeah,
regional
yeah,
meeting. So
yeah,
I think
that's
she
right,
heard
that's
about it.
right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
we can
Okay,
certainly do that. And
terrific.
actually, the other thing that struck me when you were speaking, Mary, you talked a lot about, food insecurity and climate benefits of the breadfruit trees, but also health, I think, is a huge one. I think you mentioned briefly the nutritional profile of it, but I know that, uh, transmissible diseases are such a big problem, especially in the Caribbean. And, a lot of the food that people eat is not healthy, and breadfruit can probably be healthy or not healthy. It depends depending on how you prepare it, but there are lots of healthy ways to prepare it. And I think that's, could have a very beneficial effect as well.
Absolutely. And since we're among Democrats here, I want to tell you one of our very first and very generous donors to the foundation was Hillary Clinton.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yes, she
Ah,
liked the
excellent.
idea. She she invited me to the State Department when she was Secretary of State. She had a meeting, she convened a meeting of tropical female ambassadors so I could
Hmm.
speak to them about what we were dreaming about. And
Hmm.
um, and she's been very generous at Clinton Foundation. Right before COVID, they had a meeting in Puerto Rico, and they
Hmm.
gave me space and food, and I could invite anybody I want, and we could
Mm.
speak about breadfruit. We were supposed to speak for 30 minutes, and the meeting lasted 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Wow. That's
and at
incredible.
the reception at night, they served everything on the menu contained breadfruit.
That
And
is
this was
so
in Puerto
cool.
Rico, and that was, you believe in something, you put your effort and your money where your mouth is. And just like to speak to Holly about something because the University of the West Indies has a very good program on bush medicine. If you reach
Mhm.
out to me, I'll connect you with those people if you're not already connected with them. The
Oh,
more
Mary, thank you. The University of the West Indies, a particular branch or?
Yes, and I forgot the name. I think it's called Natural Remedies or Natural something.
Okay.
There was a meeting in Jamaica, the Society of Ethnobotanists, and it was held there. And I happened to go to the meeting, and I learned more than I ever thought I would learn. So they are there, and they're doing a lot of research. And it's important that you may not duplicate something they're doing. Collaborate is always better.
Of course, of course. And Mary, I had a question for you in terms of trees that feed and how they work with other nonprofits that are located, let's say, in places like St. Vincent. Do you already have formidable networks with this country? Or how do you begin the collaboration if we would want to continue the conversation?
Reach out to us. We wait to be invited. We wait for somebody to come and say, "Hey, I have an idea. We could do this together." That's really how we work. Sometimes that drives Natasha crazy because she wants to discipline me, but we have to work with people who are passionate, who have the same vision as us, and who are in country. There's a group called Helen's Daughters.
Yes.
They're in St. Vincent, are very strong. We've done some collaborative things with them and their farmers. So reach out to us. Let's continue the conversation and see how we can work together. We're not
Wonderful.
big, but we
Yeah.
have we have a lot to offer.
Yes, yes. I think that there's a lot to say about scale and keeping things intimate, of course, without burning oneself out.
But I'm thinking about places like Myro, which obviously went through Hurricane Beryl a year ago, and them thinking about their own like agency within food security, and how to work around issues that are deeply connected to water insecurity and being in a space that is, less traveled, but they have a formidable community of 312 people who are looking to change that narrative, moving them truly from a scarcity dynamic into a dynamic of provisioning. And I think the breadfruit like has that story in it, in the heart of it.
Absolutely. Yes, let's connect. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And this has been a wonderful opportunity. I see familiar faces, and Angela Forrest has been just wonderful. Before she married her husband, who's been a childhood friend of mine, when we wanted trees transported from one island to the next, not one part of Jamaica to the next, I'd phone and say, Wayne, I need a favor. Can you put these 50 trees in the trunk of your car and deliver them to Negril? He always said yes. We had a young entrepreneur who was showcasing their breadfruit chips, and they needed more people at their event. Well, he featured Angela as she became his, what you call a booth babe, holding up his chips. And that's how we help people, because entrepreneurship's going to drive this. We want people to make money from something that's so underutilized. It's like making money from nothing. And that's what we want to encourage people to do, as long as it's environmentally sustainable and wise. So thank you. I've just really enjoyed this so much. So thank you all.
Well, thank you again, Mary. I think we've enjoyed it very much as well. And I think you have a new group of ambassadors here. We have all your information. So as you asked, we'll be sure to spread it as widely as we can. And I think several of us will also follow up with you to see how we can help your support your efforts on our islands.
Thank you.
And you and Natasha are welcome to stay if you'd like to. We're going to have a short meeting after this and talk about some of the other stuff we're doing. So if you'd like to stay, you can, but I know you guys are busy. So
Yeah, I'll excuse myself. I have to go cook dinner.
breadfruit?
I wish.
Hard to grow it in Chicago, I imagine.
Thank
I'm
you.
on,
All right. Well, thanks
Bye.
again,
thank
ladies.
you.
Take
Bye.
care.
I'm on dog walking duty. Thank you
All
for
right. Thank you for
inviting me,
coming home.
Sally. All right, take good care. Bye.
Bye.